So I'm working on the quilting of this now. I have switched to my, this is one of my Singer Model 15 treadle machines. And I've got 40 weight cotton quilting thread in gray. Kind of matches the backing fabric. And I'm just going really pretty slow here to try and be a little careful not to put any quilting over my embroidery. I will go between some of this to quilt this down and add some definition, but I'm starting by doing all the outside background. So far I have gone over around the whole piece with an outline quilting stitch, and now I'm working on filling in the background, and then I will do the interior parts, and I'll have to decide whether or not to use a different thread in the when I quilt into the middle or not. I think that at least on the top, the quilting thread on this, on the designed part, on the embroidered part, probably won't show very much because there's so much embroidery thread there. I think the quilting stitches will essentially sink into it and sort of become not visible as individual stitches, but it will add some dimension to it. So I may in fact just use the same thread to do the quilting into the design as well. Now this background is just simple little arcs, and I didn't want to do anything too busy. The embroidered portion is pretty busy in and of itself, and it really didn't need a whole bunch of additional movement created by quilting. At least that's my approach to this one. That, you know, a lot of times I actually think that the quilting really makes the design. In this case, I want the quilting to enhance the design, not detract. So I don't want to get too carried away. Now I have the layers are just pinned together. One of the things that I have done on a few quilts recently is used a spray adhesive to attach the layers, and I didn't like it that much. While it held the layers together okay, it added a stiffness that I think it made it a little harder to do a nice job with my quilting. And even though, and this could be entirely based on the brand that I used, but I found that it really gunked up my needle. I kept having to stop and pull crud off of the lint and bits off of the needle as I worked. And I'm just doing a little bit at a time, outlining the outside edge as I go, rather than going around the whole thing. Because what happens with this open toe foot is it catches on that outside edge, and rather than fight with it all the way around. I'm just doing a little bit at a time. The other thing about this is that once I'm done, I'm going to have to go back and square it up, because I didn't do any measuring or squaring up beforehand. I just grabbed a chunk of fabric off of my file and started stitching. I paid no attention to its size or shape, and I'm sure that it's going to need a little assistance to make it a even size. So some of the stitching on the outside edge will likely just get cut off, but that's not, I don't think, a big deal. But anyway, really is just going to be a lot of this. For quite a while, until I get all the outside done. And another thing I'll have to decide on is what to use for binding. I'm not sure. I'll look. If I have some more of this same gray fabric, I think that would actually make a nice binding, but honestly I don't know if I have any more or not. I imagine that I could make it work with black. I don't want anything that's going to compete. If you think of it as a picture, let's say you have a painting that you want to take to have framed. You know, a lot of times a neutral frame is the best choice because it doesn't detract from the painting. It lets the painting be the star. So I think binding can be the same thing. You may need, or you may be better with something neutral, and you know, a lot of people don't think of it that way, but black is not a color. It's definitely neutral. Black goes with everything, and so anyway, if I don't have any more of this gray that I used for the quilt itself to do binding, I think I will probably end up with black. It would be, I think, a mistake to try to find one of these greens in my threads to make a binding with, because it'll never match. You know, I might get close, but it's going to look off. And part of that is because all of these colors have a real sheen to them because of the nature of the thread. It's that shiny polyester thread. So even if the color was exactly the same, it's going to read differently because it's not going to have that sheen on it. So I think it's a mistake to try and say, oh, I have some of this, some fabric that's just this color green. I think even if I put that on there, it still would look like it was a little off. So I'm thinking probably better to stick with a non-competing color. So anyway, it's going to be a lot more of quilting this in there, and then after I get all of this together, I'll do some more in there, and then I'll show you where I get after that. Well, I'm nearly finished, and I don't know if you can see this, but I did some some curved lines through a lot of the embroidery to create a little dimension in that. And as I suspected, the stitches kind of disappear in the embroidery, so that's not going to show. I just have a little bit more the background to fill in, and then I'm ready to bind it. I have not been able to locate any more of this gray fabric that I used for the background, so it looks like I'm going to use black for the binding. One thing I almost always have is some black fabric. So anyway, I'm just about at the end. I'm gonna do the binding. I think I will probably do by hand. Well, I'll sew it on with the machine to the front, and then fold it over and hand stitch to the back. I usually end up getting a neater finish if I do that. I'm usually not the best when I want the binding to turn out perfect, is when I usually make it end up being all wonky. So I have a better chance of getting it nice if I do it by hand. But there's nothing to say that I couldn't do it by machine. It certainly, I think, looks just as good. And I'm not opposed to all machine done binding. It's just, I don't know. This is so small, it won't take me that long to do the hand stitching on the back. You know, the funny thing is, I haven't measured it yet, so I really don't know how big it is. I think it's probably about the size of a back quarter, which would be about, what, 18 by 24, something like that. By 22. Anyway, I'm right now at the very end, and I will measure it, trim it, and put on the binding. And I don't know if you can. Let me see if I can get a view of the whole thing there. So that's where I'm at now, and like I said, binding next, but I'm pretty pleased with it.